Thanks, Rick. Really appreciate it. So, good morning, everyone. Looking forward to today's presentation. As Rick mentioned, my name is Matt Miller. Been with Sonos about 5 years, actually as an account manager in the Great Lakes region. So I cover 5 states: Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Western PA, and Michigan. Based in Dayton, Ohio, and my focus is specifically this channel. So about several hundred dealers in this overall market. So today we're actually going to focus on a new product that you probably have been hearing about. Just prior to CEDIA, we actually gave a public announcement about a new amplifier. So before we get into that, just a quick review of kind of what Sonos's mission is and how we work to fill homes with music. So Sonos really bills itself as the home sound system, and the key word here, just want to make sure that we really focus on is system, because we're not talking about products that are one-to-one relationships where you have an app that controls, say for example, a Bluetooth speaker. This is a system designed to go into multiple rooms and stream music anywhere you wish to place a Sonos product. So why Sonos? Again, as that home sound system, we are really looking at the full home experience and not just a single zone. All your music everywhere, as we bill it. Human control, sound you can feel. It's very important to us that we always have the artist intent in mind. So we actually enlist the assistance of artists themselves to make sure that we're reproducing music the way they want it to be heard. So we really call this listening better. In an open platform. So one of the things that we've really focused on in the last couple of years is really beginning to open our platform to allow that integration that you guys do every day into actually, whether it's a hardware device that perhaps has hard button control of a Sonos zone, or perhaps software integration to actually allow us to more seamlessly integrate with, say, control systems or even security. You'll find a lot of information that I'm going to share today in regards to where we're going with that. So really an end-to-end look at how Sonos is really trying to be that turnkey solution for your home audio needs. So one thing that we've always really focused on, and hopefully you guys have found this when you've installed Sonos, is that quality is absolutely at the epicenter of everything that we do. Because you can have a great sounding product, but if the quality is poor and you're constantly doing RMAs and everything, then that's those are truck rolls. That's money out of your pocket. So high quality is low risk for you. So the ability to actually go in and install that system and know that it's going to perform day after day. We have less than a 0.5% failure rate. So every product that leaves the factory is actually burned in. Not every third product, so this is a testament to how we feel about quality and making sure that those products are going to work reliably day after day. And the other thing is that in my personal story with Sonos is that I bought my first products. One of the very first products that Sonos ever shipped was the ZP100, the original Connect amp, and I bought those in 2005 for my own use, 2 zones. And within probably a couple of months, I had 15 of those original ZP100s in my house. And the amazing thing is that was in 2005, and they're still there today, getting software updates continually. So it's an amazing story that is a testament to how we feel about product and making sure that we're going to put that product in a home. We expect it to be there for years, and we're not just going to stop supporting it and giving it updates after a year or two like many other vendors. We're going to continue to ship software updates to that speaker to make it even better over time. So 93% of our products are still active today from those early years at Sonos. So that's an amazing statistic, and one that we definitely intend to carry forward. Listen better to live better. Again, it's about experience, whether it's in the quality of the audio that's coming out of the speaker or whether it's in the app experience that you hold in your hand. So it starts with us. And one of the things that we really wanted to look at was that we've never had a super huge depth of products. We believe in building products that fit their needs explicitly, and we're not trying to fill every little niche. We want to make sure that we build products and give you the technology that you need and nothing that you don't. So our products are simply stated. They look good. They operate seamlessly, and they give you exactly what you need for that personal home music experience. Now, in the last couple of years, we noticed we've launched a lot of new and innovative products, things like Playbase and Beam for home theater applications, the Sonos One with voice control. But in this channel, you guys have been asking us for a long time is, what can we do to, upgrade and perhaps produce new products for the components? So things like the Connect and the Connect Amp. Connect Amp, believe it or not, has been out there nearly 12 years in its current form, and that's an amazing statistic right there. But we really needed to focus on, where Connect Amp perhaps wasn't delivering the experience that you needed. So in the last couple of years, we've really focused, and we actually went to about 100 different integrators across the country, and we asked them, what do you need in Connect Amp? What would make this product really be that bulletproof solution that you use every day? And they gave us a lot of opinions, and frankly, some of it was, hard to hear because there were areas where they felt that we weren't listening, and that we really needed to focus on the features and the hardware design that they really needed. So we did take that, and we kind of swallowed some pride and really looked at what our roadmap was and how we could fulfill those needs for this channel, because it's a very important channel for Sonos and one that we value. So a couple of things. The challenge was, probably number one request was more power. Connect Amp just wasn't delivering at 55 by 2 for those larger installs. Let's face it, the homes are getting bigger, the applications are getting bigger. So whether it's an outdoor space, outdoor living is obviously a huge a trend right now. Everyone wants that big space where they can really have that that in-home experience outdoors. So at 55 by 2, Connect Amp just wasn't delivering. And then also, the ability to power more speakers in those bigger spaces. So you have those big vaulted ceilings, and you just need some more juice, to be able to deliver that experience that the clients want. Secondly was respecting the rack. As you all know, Connect Amp was never really designed for the rack. It was designed to be set on furniture or in a cabinet. So as such, the form factor was a little bit awkward in a rack, because when you stuff a rack full of Connect Amps, the real estate usage is not exactly efficient. Obviously, a taller unit consumes more rack units, and definitely can make it a challenge to get as much product as you need into those larger density installs. Lastly was versatility. So TV connectivity, how about having a supported solution for using Connect Amp with home theater applications? So obviously it was originally designed just to do wireless audio, but now we have a more request from installers to be able to have a multi-purpose type of product that's going to be able to deliver not only wireless audio, but the ability to connect it into TV and give that home theater experience as well. And just general versatility for all kinds of installs, whether it's residential or even commercial. So beyond just the hardware design, the ability to have the flexibility to make some of those customizations in the app in terms of how that experience is delivered in the home. So I'm going to show you a little video here. It may be a bit choppy just because of the overhead of the webinar here, but hopefully you guys will get the message. So a little bit about the design and thought process behind the new amp.
One of the very first products that Sonos came out with was the Connect Amp. Connect Amp was first embraced by do-it-yourselfers and then later by the custom install community. That community has been asking for a really long time for more power. Power.
We want that power. We want that 125 watts into 8 ohms.
And all kinds of new features. And that's why we created the Sonos Amp. So what is this thing?
It's an amplifier, not a speaker. No, it's not a speaker.
The power behind your speaker. What should I plug into it?
Maybe you have your own vintage speakers.
Some really nice floor standing speakers.
Built into the ceiling, built into the walls, placed in the garden.
Anything that you would like to drive, this can power.
It can live in the living room, it can connect to a TV, to a turntable, it can fit in a rack.
Why is it shaped like this?
We're trying to reference what music looks like. CDs, it's vinyl, turntables. There is this square and circle theme reoccurring a lot.
You can easily stack them, you can easily put them side by side, and the dimensions are just perfect. We basically started from scratch to rethink what an amplifier is.
How do you make a product that works for an enthusiast, but then also can be stacked in the rack in the best way?
So why does the bottom look like a waffle?
Heat. Power amplifiers generate heat.
And you need to do something with it.
Every aspect of this heatsink is very thoughtfully developed.
So that it's intaking air from the bottom.
New cooler air will come in to take its place.
So it's not just the holes. What else is going on in there?
How much time do you have? Die-cast aluminum.
Discrete output stage.
Direct digital feedback amplifier.
Black painted circuit boards.
Wait, what?
Everything had to be black.
Why the circuit board's black?
Technically speaking, black circuit boards are slightly better at radiating heat.
How do I plug in my speakers?
These simple looking banana jacks.
They even sound great if you sort of, twist a little knob.
Why are they called banana plugs?
I've never asked that.
It's sort of like a skinny banana. It's more like a zucchini.
There's a lot of magic hidden inside the box.
What else can it do?
Software is a really core part of our value. APIs allow you to add a lot of power to Sonos and AMP.
People are going to look at it and they're going to be thinking about it even in ways we haven't imagined.
It can grow with you the way that the Sonos system grows with you.
It's an incredibly elegant product that demonstrates its power and its versatility. We tamed what was complex and made something simple and beautiful.
So that is the new Sonos amp, a little bit of the behind the scenes from the engineering team in terms of how they thought about this product and how they really brought it to life. So as you can see, there is some of the statements from some of the engineers. Just, we really took, a complete redesign of the Connect amp and really tried to address the things that you guys asked for, quite honestly. So everything from the, the performance of the unit to the actual physical design to make it, a little bit more conducive to those rack installations that you guys typically do. So let's go on and actually discuss a little bit about the technical features and get into some of the nitty-gritty here. So AMP is priced $100 more than the Connect amp, so at $599 retail. But as you'll find here, as I dig into this, you're going to see that the value that it represents in terms of what it can do versus Connect amp is well worth that $99 upcharge in price. So feature breakdown. Amp, first off, more power, 125 watts a channel into 8 ohms, 250 watts a channel into 4 ohms. This is truly stable at 4 ohms. When you have those bigger installations where you have perhaps a kitchen and you want to put in 2 pairs of good quality 8 ohm speakers, then you're going to be able to drive that at full volume all day long. Whereas Connect amp, depending on some of those installs, might have cut out just because the load was too high. So Connect amp was 55 watts of channel digital amplification. This is more than double that power. It's stable down to 2 ohms dynamically, so it's really going to be able to, to carry those larger, installations and when your clients are really cranking the music, you're going to have confidence that this is going to be able to deliver on that. Peak output current 31 amps, signal noise ratio 116 dB. So definitely really put a new ton of horsepower in this product to really deliver on those bigger installs. Also now consider this for, fully capable for outdoor applications as well as commercial to be able to drive those, those bigger spaces. TV sound, so the versatility of being able to actually hook this into TV applications. So it is designed with HDMI ARC. You'll note that when we launched the Beam back in July, that the Beam was our first product ever to have HDMI built in. So the ability to use audio return channel via a display or a projector and actually pipe that audio directly into the device. Now, some of you probably maybe shaking your heads about ARC because you've had issues with compatibility, and it's kind of like the early days of HDMI where there was all this handshaking issues, and ARC didn't really, or HDMI didn't really live up to its promise until a couple of generations in. We constantly test, and HDMI ARC we found to be about 80% compatible across most of the major brands of TVs. However, your mileage may vary, so if that's the case, there's always a plan B. With the Beam, there actually is a small pigtail adapter that allows you to go optical out of the TV to an HDMI female input, which you can then use with any standard HDMI cable to interface. And the advantage of that is that if ARC is just not delivering the compatibility, the experience that you wish, you can use that small adapter, which will be available, for sale at very low cost to basically enable, an optical only experience. So that is your plan B should you desire not to use HDMI ARC because of compatibility issues. There is an IR receiver built into the amp. On the front lower edge, there's an ability to control it via IR, much like a play bar or a beam. So you can use that standard remote, whether it's a traditional cable OEM remote or the TV remote, to actually control the TV via IR. One of the advantages of ARC is that we can actually pass CEC commands. So if you are using the stock HDMI ARC interface, then you will actually be able to use any remote. So whether it's a Bluetooth remote or an RF remote, the TV will actually pass those commands directly to the beam and vice versa. It's a two-way communication path. Wireless surround for 5.1 home theater. So many of you have probably done installs where you've used Playbar or perhaps Beam or Playbase as your LCR speakers in a home theater installation, and then you've used Connect Amp for rear surrounds. Now the trick is that you had to actually physically wire that Connect Amp back to the the Playbar via Ethernet, and the reason for that is that the Connect Amp did not have a 5 gigahertz radio. So the way we actually communicate our low frequency effects to, say, for example, a subwoofer, or to the rear surrounds when you're using Sonos Ones or Play Ones, is we use 5 gig to make sure that we're not having any additional latency introduced between the video and audio. Because the Connect Amp did not have a 5 gig radio, you had to actually hardwire them together. No more with the new amp, because now it does have dual radios, 2.4 and 5 gigs. So you'll be able to actually use amp as that wireless rear surround experience for a play bar, play base, or beam install when you're doing 5.1. But by itself, you can actually use amp in a without using a play bar, and you can deliver up to a 4.1 surround experience. So that would be an amp for your left, right, front speakers, an amp for your left, right, rear surrounds, and then you could use either a third-party sub, or you could use a Sonos sub to deliver a 4.1 surround experience. Now, what we do with that center channel is we basically multiplex it across the left, right, front. So we create a phantom center. I can tell you that if any of you went to CEDIA and you got a chance to see our demo rooms, it's an amazing experience, and your clients will not know that it's a 4.1 versus 5.1. We do a really good job of creating that center channel experience. Okay, digging in a little bit further, this is not always about, or not all about just hardware. The new amp, when it launches, will actually be introducing some cool new things. New APIs, which will be in many ways platform across the platform, not just specific to any one product. So these APIs are something we've been working on for a number of years. One of the biggest ones was called line-in switching. So the ability to actually physically trigger a line input, say for example on a play bar or a beam, or even a new amp, to actually physically discretely trigger a line-in input. So whether that's some control systems like a doorbell scene where it puts a chime through the Sonos player, or perhaps a discrete selection of the TV audio, those are going to be available in the APIs for the different control manufacturers and others to actually develop against. So those are published, and many of those manufacturers or control system manufacturers are actually developing APIs to take advantage of these new features. Volume pass-through. So imagine having a Connect where you've bolted it on to a third-party amplifier, and oftentimes you'll be setting that Connect to a fixed volume output. Well, now how do you control the volume? You'd have to have a third-party remote or some other control system to control the volume. But what we're going to do with our volume pass-through API is allow you to actually physically control the third-party amplifier over IP from within the Sonos app. So even though the variable output is, the Connect is set to fixed output, you'll still be able to go into the Sonos app and actually control the volume, but you're controlling the volume of the third-party amplifier. So pretty cool, and a really neat application for using Connect, and without having to create a very complex system with yet another control for volume. Notifications. So imagine having a security scenario where you want to create a notification of an event. So for example, in a security scenario, you might have a door that's open. Well, that may not be a very high priority event. It could be a low priority event. So we're going to have the ability to have notifications pass through to individual Sonos players. So that's a really exciting one because it represents a lot of different applications beyond just security. And then lastly, playlists. So the ability to actually publish playlists that clients have created in the Sonos app and have those pass through to the third-party control system. So again, really working hard to make these robust. And the key thing here is that these are supported solutions and APIs that are definitely in the pipeline. And that's good for everybody because when we have unsupported solutions, then they aren't sustainable and things break and there's just a lot of frustration. So we're really moving in the right direction on providing the types of integration that you guys want. Software enhancements. So one of the things that the new amp will offer you is the ability to do dual mono. So imagine that you have an outdoor space where oftentimes having a discrete left and right channel in stereo is not always the best sound experience because that outdoor space is rarely just a rectangle, right? It may not be perfectly suited for that. Maybe it's a kidney-shaped yard or something like that. That's a little bit more challenging to provide a really good audio experience. So you'll be able to go into the app and actually configure that speaker for dual mono, so you have a more consistent distribution of sound across those bigger spaces. Also really applicable for commercial spaces too. So think about that application. Volume limiting. This will be portfolio wide, so not tied to any one product, but the ability to actually set a volume limiting. So if they've got younger children where they don't want them to crank up the music beyond what's tolerable by the neighbors, they will have the ability to actually specifically limit or govern that that particular volume level. Wi-Fi disabled. This is a big one. I know I'm probably hearing some of you guys clapping in the background, but you probably all at one point or another experienced the dreaded spinning tree loop issue that tends to crop up with Sonos when you're doing larger density installations. So perhaps you're putting in 10 amps or 10 Connect amps in a rack, and you plug them all into a switch, and then suddenly the switch lights up like a Christmas tree and everything just grinds to a halt. This happens because Sonos players, when they form their mesh network, using Sonos Net, they actually use a protocol called spanning tree protocol. Now, when you're using a managed switch and a spanning tree protocol is not enabled, then that network loop can occur and basically the whole thing comes to a halt. So by disabling Wi-Fi, because if you're going to install amps and products in a rack, which you often do, there's no need to really have those radios on because you're going to be hardwiring each individual player into a dedicated switch port. So now we basically can go into the app, and as long as there's an Ethernet connection there, you'll actually be able to go and actually turn off that radio. And the advantage is that now there's only one path to the network over that wire, and that player is going to operate very efficiently. And you also have the benefit of freeing up one channel of Wi-Fi because Sonos uses 2.4 gigahertz. And if we turn off all those radios because we have hardwired players, then you free up one channel of 2.4 for access points and other things. So a really cool feature. It does have some protection in it, so there's not an issue of you locking yourself out of player unless it finds an Ethernet jack in the back of it that's active. It will not allow you to turn off that Wi-Fi. So really cool stuff, and that's applicable not on amp, but everything. So if it's a Sonos One or a Play One, you'll still be able to turn off that radio if you wish. Cool stuff. On the back of the amp is as you saw in that video, was these speaker connectors. So basically these are removable, meaning that you can go and do a pre-wire and actually jack those onto your speaker runs, and then later on when it's ready to install the actual amp, you just plop it in the rack or put it in the cabinet, and then you can just simply plug those right into the back of the unit, and it makes for a quick and easy installation. If you pull those out, they actually are just standard interfaces for banana plugs, as I mentioned in the video, that you can plug right into the back of the amp. But these are a nice way to kind of speed your install, and they do ship with the unit by itself. On the back, in terms of connectivity, very similar to Connect Amp, you'll see that there's a third-party sub output. There's 2 Ethernet ports that are 100 meg. There is a analog RCA input for connecting a turntable or other devices. And then you'll notice that the one big change is that there's an HDMI port. So that's for that HDMI ARC interface to allow you to use for home theater applications, to drive that that home theater audio. Lastly, there's a pairing button there just above the power connector. The power supply is entirely built into the unit, so there is no big wall wart or brick or anything like that. That's kind of a a no-no at Sonos. You'll notice all of our products have built-in power supplies, which makes for a really clean install, and it's just a better way to have a product as opposed to a big big wall wart or power supply that's you got to then manage. It becomes a real mess. So all of our power supplies are built into the products themselves. Okay, so in terms of audio, just to kind of cover some of the scenarios in which you can use this. So the way that you guys likely used Connect Amp was that as a wireless audio solution. You have it placed in a rack somewhere or perhaps in a cabinet, and then you're just delivering in-ceiling or in-wall or even bookshelf speaker experiences. So typically two speakers driven by a Connect Amp delivered that one zone of audio. So with the new amp, you're going to have the ability to drive consistently and reliably and with plenty of power to spare a 4-speaker array, which is going to, at 8 ohms, you're going to be able to drive that stably at 4 ohms, between the 2 pairs of speakers there. So it's going to give you a better audio experience to cover those bigger spaces and just better overall sound dispersion. So subwoofer output, there is going to be a new configurable crossover frequency for the sub output. So if you're using that third-party sub, you're going to have the ability to actually have some more fine-tuned control over it, so you know exactly where that crossover is going to occur. Again, just going to deliver a better audio experience and give you guys some more flexibility of how you do your installs. The analog connection, as I mentioned, is going to be perfect for connecting those turntables, CD players, iPods or other devices that you want to use for your line input to distribute that around to any other Sonos speaker in the home. As I mentioned, the HDMI connectivity is for those home theater applications, and then you can use the amp as surrounds, wired or wireless. And the HDMI ARC configuration here, we've got a 2.0 solution. HDMI ARC originating from the TV back into the back of the amp, and then a 2-speaker setup to give you a really nice, clean installation. We can really disguise those speakers and make it sound good, but have the flexibility of the amp driving it. In this application, you have actually a 5.1 solution where you have, a 4.1 solution where you have an amp driving 2 left-right front speakers. You have a Sonos sub, and then you have 2 Sonos Ones as your rear surrounds. Basically all wireless, end to end. In this scenario, you have a 4.1 solution where you have 2 amps, one driving the front pair of speakers, one driving the rear, and then a Sonos sub to deliver a 4.1 experience. Again, we basically take those left-right front channels, and then we create a phantom center out of those 2. It's a very compelling experience in a bigger room. You will feel like you're in a full 5.1 Dolby Digital experience. And then lastly, you want to deliver a full 5.1 experience with the play bar. You can now do so, albeit very, very simply, because now instead of having to daisy chain that play bar to the Connect amp, you'll be able to actually do that wirelessly via that 5 gig radio. 2 Ethernet ports, 10100, and the ability to disable the Wi-Fi in the app. One thing that I hear a lot when I'm talking to installers is, what's the story on connectivity with the amp or the Connect amp? Do I daisy chain them? Do I not daisy chain them? Do I connect, one or more together or only one? There seems to be a lot of confusion around that. So our recommendation and best practice is to do an individual hardwired run to each individual amp that you may have in a rack. So if you have 6 amps in a rack, run 6 Ethernet connections to a dedicated switch, and it will run very, very smoothly. The ability to disable that Wi-Fi is just going to give you that more efficient communication path and also free up that channel of Wi-Fi. The join button is just like the pairing button. You'll notice that, for example, on the Sonos One, the Play 5, and other newer products that we have, there is a pairing button, which is just a 1-button press to join it to the network. Power connection, pretty simple, straightforward. The status indicator is going to be that LED is going to give you the status of the player, whether it's on the network or not on the network, whether it's muted or playing, and then just overall power status. On the front, there is a capacitive touch control. So similar to some of our newer products, such as the Sonos One and the Beam, you can actually just tap your finger on the right or the left to increase, decrease volume, play, pause in the center. And then what's really cool is that if you have a playlist going or a Pandora station or something of that nature, you can actually just swipe right across the front from left to right, and it will actually increase that track. Same operation exists for swipe right to left, and basically will rewind to the previous song on the track, which is pretty cool. Incidentally, these can be disabled, so you can disable the LED if it perhaps bothers somebody, or you can actually disable the capacitive touch control. So if it is in a rack, you don't have to worry about the client going down there and touching the product and perhaps pausing all the music. So these can be disabled from within the app. As well, you can disable the IR receiver. The IR receiver, I don't know if you can see it in this picture, but it's actually right at the base of the unit, small little strip of plastic there that basically is where you can put a bug to control this via IR, just like you would with a play bar or a Beam. So it sets up the same way. On-device control, as I mentioned, the IR receiver. And then you'll notice that on the bottom, again, that IR receiver can actually be placed there, so it looks like a really clean installation. Is that we have an M5 mounting thread, which is really cool because now you could actually mount this to a wall in a cabinet, because there are installations that you do that probably are not rack-based, where it's perhaps a retrofit. You don't have the luxury of having a big rack or a closet to put it in. So sometimes you got to work with the space that you have. So this M5 fastener allows you to actually screw mount this to a wall. Now there's a ton of products coming from companies like Flexon and Sanus, and I'm sure many others that are building brackets and mounts to create unique scenarios to install multiple amps when you're not using a rack. So that M5 threaded fastener is really going to be pivotal in giving you guys versatility to how you install this. So you'll see some of those accessories, I'm sure, being marketed heavily, through the various channels. So what is included with the amp what do you get in the box? The great thing is that we found in our research that literally 70% of what we put in there, besides the Connect amp, was literally thrown away. So things like Ethernet cords, everybody has their own favorite go-to for patch cords. So there's no sense in putting something in the box that you guys are going to throw away. So we give you the amp, we give you the power cord, we give you the banana plugs, and a quick start guide, and that's it. Everything else you get to sell. So things like HDMI cables, so when you use it for home theater applications, these are typically high margin opportunities for you guys. Speaker wire, obviously, the HDMI to optical dongle if you don't wish to use ARC. Ethernet cables, and then patch cords for RCA inputs. All those things you can sell at at increased margin and really deliver a better experience. So we give you the basics. Availability. So one of the things we did with this is one of the first times, to my knowledge, ever at Sonos' history where we actually pre-announced a product with such a huge lead time in terms of availability. But because this product is so very specifically focused on the custom integration channel, we wanted to give you guys a heads up about it, really learn and educate yourselves about what it represents. But we're also not releasing it into the retail channels for a little while yet. We're going to give it to you guys first. So general availability for retail channels and everywhere is going to be February 1st of 2019 for you guys. Actually, early access, it will be shipping and in your hands no later than December 1st of this year. So a full 2-month head start in terms of where this is going to be available. You won't find it in Best Buys until February of next year. Quite honestly, this is not really a consumer focused product. This is going to be the product that you guys install, and someone going into Best Buy is going to look at a black box and say, I don't know what that means for $600. So for you guys, though, this will definitely represent a really good opportunity to solidify business and really give your customers awesome experiences. So this will be available in all channels. So in terms of distribution in the late November, December timeframe. So you'll be able to get product and start installing it. Jobs coming up, definitely feel free to spec those jobs that are coming up just before Christmas with AMP, because you will have available product to install prior to Christmas. So Connect Amp, we're not looking to do a hard cut over here. This isn't you know, a scenario in which we're just going to say, okay, Amp is available, Connect Amp is not. Connect Amp is going to soft transition out of the lineup by January. So it will be available throughout December. So there will be some crossover here. So if you have existing jobs, perhaps that don't need you know, the versatility and the new features of the Amp, maybe it's just a really basic install, then you'll still have the ability to get Connect Amp through the end of December. But after that, it will be a full shift to the new Amp, and Connect Amp will drop out of the lineup. That does not mean it won't get updates, because we're always continually updating products, even ones that we don't sell anymore. So for example, the Play 3 went away this past summer. We're still going to be, you know, issuing software updates and things to that product over time. So Connect Amp is by no means, you know, don't have to rip that out of any install because it's going to be obsolete. No, it will continue to get updates and be supported by Sonos, definitely. So definitely be aware of that. So really, we designed this for the integrator. So, you know, if you look at the hardware features, the more power, the versatility for home theater applications, you know, and the software features in terms of new APIs, this really reflects a renewed focus on this channel and really giving you guys, you know, the features and the power that you need to do, you know, right by your clients. So I wanted to kind of shift into a couple of things just to make you guys aware of some things. You know, they're constantly evolving at Sonos, so new product is always great, but you know, we're doing a ton of work around software as well. If you really look at the you know, the content of what's available on the Sonos platform, you know, we deliver by far the most of any, you know, sound system out there. Over 80 music services worldwide available on Sonos. So when we say all the music on earth, we really mean it, because, you know, there's very almost none to my knowledge of you know, the major service providers and music, you know, services that are not hosted on Sonos, including some very key ones such as Apple Music. Whereas, you know, you can listen to Apple Music on a Bluetooth speaker or a Apple product, but it's not hosted anywhere else but on a Sonos speaker. So that's a really big testament to how we think about, you know, relationships with these partners, and how we're continuing to, you know, kind of expand the envelope in terms of content, you know, that your customers can listen to. Half of all of the music services on Sonos are totally free. So definitely take the time to engage with your customer base and really give them, you know, the content that they want. And it doesn't always have to be a subscription. Sometimes it can be a free service that, you know, might be a station from TuneIn that could be, you know, where they listen to their high school football games. So take the time to educate them, because that's really going to give them the value of what Sonos represents. Couple of things is that, you know, you know, some intriguing services, things like SoundCloud, which gives you all that, you know, content of the independent artists and so forth that are out there that you never hear on the radio. Great way for engaging in new music content. As I mentioned, TuneIn, a great way to, you know, to explore AM/FM stations from around the world. And then premium services, you know, the big players are going to be on there, the Apple Musics, the Googles, the Spotify. You know, these are going to be continued partners of ours. We're going to, you know, really continue to up the bar in terms of the content, the app experience, and how they're integrated with Sonos. Direct control. So this is something we started doing about 2 years ago, but the list of partners that have access to direct control on Sonos is continually expanding. So this means basically that you can pull up that app, say it's a Spotify app, and actually if you're on the same Wi-Fi network as a Sonos player, you're going to actually be able to stream directly from the Spotify app to any Sonos speaker in that household. So really cool, because now you know, you don't have to leave that experience that you're familiar with. So definitely educate your customers if they're Spotify users, perhaps Pandora, Amazon Music, Tidal, and Google, you know, all have this functionality. So, you know, you can not even open the Sonos app. You can actually use the app that you use in the car or on the go to control Sonos products. So really cool stuff there. This list is expanding, you know, all the time. Another thing that's really big is AirPlay 2. So this was a software update that Apple launched earlier this summer, and AirPlay has been around for many years, but AirPlay 2 is a huge leap in functionality for, you know, for Apple. But we actually now have the ability to leverage AirPlay in the Sonos platform. So with our newer products, basically anything that has launched since the Play 5 Gen 2, which was launched in 2015. So that's Play 5 Gen 2, Play Base, Beam, Sonos One, and now the new amp all have the functionality of being controlled via AirPlay 2. So if you have that iOS device, you can actually just click that little AirPlay icon, and if you're on the same Wi-Fi network, you'll actually see a list of Sonos speakers, and then you can actually play that content, whether it just be chimes from your phone or a particular app on your iOS device that you want to stream the audio over to a Sonos player. Now you can listen to a way better audio quality and sound experience than you would on that iOS device by itself. I'm an Android guy, so I was kind of a little bit skeptical of the usefulness of this until I have an iPad, and I was watching Netflix in my office, and I was sitting there saying, wow, this is a pretty poor sound experience on my little iPad. And I clicked the AirPlay icon and just shot it right over to the Beam that was sitting in my office. And now it made total sense to me why this is a really huge thing. So imagine having an amp that's powering some in-ceiling speakers in a bedroom, right? And how many people watch, Netflix or something on an iPad, in their bedrooms? Well, now they have the ability to give that audio experience over the amp-powered in-ceiling speakers, as opposed to watching, or hearing it via their iPad. So tremendous opportunity to really give a really awesome experience. And you can also actually control Sonos via voice using Siri. So you would have to use your phone to be the microphone, but you can actually issue voice commands and trigger music and things via Siri over AirPlay 2. So really cool stuff. And this is not, it's very specific to the products that we'll work with natively from Sonos. So the older products like Connect Amp and Connect don't have the hardware to support it. But that doesn't mean that you can't AirPlay them via proxy. So if you have, say, a Sonos One, you could AirPlay to it, and you could group in that Connect amp to the Sonos One, and then by proxy, it becomes AirPlay compatible. And if you don't want to hear the audio on the Sonos One, then you just mute it, and you can turn up the volume on the Connect amp. And so therefore, you have the ability to AirPlay to it as well. So really cool stuff. Definitely, if you haven't been taking advantage of that, start learning about it. And if you have Sonos at home, please try that out. It's really cool. So as I mentioned, kind of in the course of this, the Works with Sonos is something we've been working on for a couple of years now. And really, it's a certification that allows us to make sure that the integrations that are occurring with Sonos are fully tested, supported, will be continually developed, and have earned that certification to make sure that the experience meets our quality standards. So this list, while just a couple of years ago was probably 4 or 5 names, is now much bigger, and we have much more in the pipeline that will be announced over time. So some big names here: Lutron, the ability to blend lights with sound and really give a nice experience. So as you come home, you hit that one button in the Lutron app, or program it such that you can actually have the lights go to 60%, the shades go up, and then a specific track or playlist begins playing on your Sonos speaker. Really easy to program, very simple, much less complex than a full-blown control system. So some of those lighter installs that you guys do, a great way to give your clients both the best of the music experience as well as the lights. URC, Wank, Savant, some big control partners here, Control 4, Crestron, all integrations that have been certified and tested to earn that Works with Sonos badge. So you're going to continue to see this evolve, and more and more products, whether they're hardware or software-based products, will definitely be coming to the forefront. Alarm.com is something that's definitely coming in the coming months, and there will be that integration that allows you to trigger scenes. Say you arm the system, maybe it plays a little chime on a Sonos speaker, or perhaps it plays a good night playlist, all from with the Alarm.com platform. New features and APIs. Now, I talked about this a little bit just to give you guys a little bit more detail. The advanced room setup, so disabling the Wi-Fi, as I mentioned, is going to minimize that wireless interference, give you protection against spanning tree protocol issues where network loops form, and a power savings also, because now you've effectively turned off a power consumption device in the Sonos player, so it will reduce the overall power consumption of the amp itself. So again, that's going to be all within the app. Some of you probably have done some of the hacks that have existed in the past where you had to pull up a computer browser and go to some crazy URL and actually disable it that way. But this will be a supported solution now. So if you call tech support, they're going to acknowledge that this functionality exists, and you can actually configure the players with the Wi-Fi disabled. Again, simple option in the app, be very easy to do on the fly, but it won't let you lock. It won't lock you out of the product inadvertently. It has to have an active Ethernet in there before it will actually give you that command. The line switching API, as I mentioned, you can actually switch between Sonos playback of a music service or source directly to a line and input. So whether that's if it's a control system, perhaps it's a processor that's got an output for a doorbell chime or something of that nature, or if it's a turntable, or if it's a TV input, there's going to be the ability in the API for the third-party manufacturer to basically include that as part of their interface. So if it's a control system, perhaps you have a macro that automatically selects discretely that line input. That will be a very huge and welcome benefit to the platform and really extend the functionality of Sonos. The pass-through API, as I mentioned, the ability to actually use a connect bolted to a third-party amplifier, and the ability to actually use the Sonos app to control the volume of the third-party amplifier. So, pretty exciting things. That's going to, be able to, to integrate connect into more installs using that volume pass-through and give a seamless experience at the app end. Notifications API, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is the ability to, in a security application, have prioritization around notifications. Then perhaps those are chimes, or it's a playlist, or you can be really creative here, but you will have the ability to actually have prioritization. So perhaps it plays for a couple of seconds, or perhaps plays longer because it's a more critical event, such as a smoke alarm. The notifications API will have a lot of value on the Sonos platform beyond just security. And the playlist API, this is important because we have this section in the Sonos app called My Sonos. So you can really build some robust playlists. Perhaps it's based on time of day, you're playing a radio station, or perhaps it's based on an on-demand music service where you create a very dedicated playlist, based on the different, people in the family or the the homeowners that live in that home. The ability to pass those through to a third-party control system. So imagine going up to a touch panel and they hit music and it shows them all of that content that's been programmed into the Sonos app. It will pass through and give them flexibility to just choose it and roll with it. So we're really looking to enhance this to give a more seamless experience. And don't forget about voice too, because a lot of times that voice control is definitely an evolving part of the installs that we're going to be doing in the future. So voice can be a nice add-on to that panel experience or the app experience, and then they don't have to actually interface with anything. They just use the the human voice to actually control Sonos or other integrations with lights or anything else. So again, the open Sonos sound platform. Years ago, we didn't really have all of this functionality or the ability to integrate with third-party systems. So a lot of those solutions that were born years ago just really were creative hacks, if you will, and now we have dedicated ways to actually integrate Sonos that is supported. And will continue to evolve and expand and give you guys even more flexibility than you have today. So we're really excited about what that represents and very focused on that integration. Definitely will be a big part of our future. So hopefully that will give you guys even more ways to deploy Sonos, whether in residential environments or even commercial. Dedicated Sonos support team. We have resources available via digital avenues such as sonos.com/support, email support@sonos.com. There's also a variety of social media avenues to actually reach out and get support, whether Facebook Messenger or perhaps even Twitter to actually engage with Sonos support team even outside of our normal call center hours. So we are open 9 10 a.m. Eastern to 9 p.m. Eastern time. We have teams located in Boston and Santa Barbara. We're continually adding and expanding that support model. So, definitely, feel free to reach out, to the AllNet reps if you're not getting the support that you need. We can always work with you to escalate things. But we're always continually expanding that experience on the support side as well. Okay, recap. Sonos is the home sound system. More so now than ever because of the integration, the new features in the amp, the ability to have all your music everywhere. So whether it's in the bathroom, whether it's in the main theater area, whether it's in the kitchen, or whether it's via voice control or perhaps app control, the ability to interact with that system in a variety of ways is really what's going to drive, the evolution of Sonos, and it's an area that we are very passionate about. We have over 10 years of experience in, and we're really continuing to lead that experience in the industry. And then lastly, the open platform. Just know that there's a lot of runway ahead there, and we are really focused on really interacting with with the partners that you guys probably use outside of audio systems to find ways to to really provide extensibility to the platform. That's what I have for today, guys. So, Rick, is there a Q&A? If there's any questions that are outstanding, I can take those now.
Sure, Matt. We've got a few questions that came in.
Sure.
Let's see. All right. You talked a little bit about a security notification. Is the security notification going to be available to all devices, all Sonos devices?
So with the APIs, it's dependent. We basically publish the APIs. So we provide the blueprint for how these are implemented. It's up to the developers themselves of the security platforms and so forth as to whether they take advantage of them. So I can't really provide an answer in terms of it depends on how that manufacturer implements what features of the API they actually adopt. I can say that for example in the security applications for notifications that yes, that most likely would be a very mission critical aspect of that integration. That notifications, I believe, will launch sometime next year. It's not something that's short term.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next question. The network interface on the existing products, we were told that it was a 10100 network interface. It didn't do gigabit. What's the network interface capability on the new product?
AMP is still a 100 megabit connection.
Okay. And does that have any impact on the wired network or any impact on the delivery of content?
No. If you look at what we host in terms of content that's going across that wire, the most you're going to get out of a music service is about 1.5 megabits a second. So for example, like Tidal and Deezer stream it lossless CD quality audio. That's about 1.5 megabits. So 100 megabit is ample in terms of bandwidth to be able to provide to any of our highest resolution streaming services. Does it cripple or lower the overall bandwidth in your network? No. A gigabit switch will negotiate that port specifically down to 100 megabit. It does not take the rest of the network down to that level. So if you have other devices that are supplying video that require way higher and they're plugged into a dedicated switch port, they will still negotiate it at 1 gigabit across those ports. Sonos will negotiate at 100 meg and everything will flow seamlessly.
All right, so I guess the follow-up question was, if you have a local source tied into one device, then that NIC is also feeding the other devices in the house, and that's again this no issue. Is there a maximum of devices that you can feed off of a local source input on one device, on a single device, provided that it's, and also what is the bit rate that it transmits local sources back out to the other devices? Do we know that?
It depends on what you're streaming. right? So, you know, a music service like a Spotify, you know, they stream at about 384 or something like that nature. But I mean, it's a fraction of a megabit, so it's a in the scheme of things, very little traffic. Now, if you're talking about like daisy chaining, where you're actually hardwiring, say, for example, a TV that's got a gigabit interface into a Sonos player because it's got a second Ethernet port on it. That's fine if you wish to do that. Now, it's important to keep in mind the context of that, because I would not want to say that you're going to be able to reliably deliver 4K content, because, you know, we may be wireless back to a boost or a bridge or something. So, you know, we don't design those ports to necessarily have third-party devices wired into them and delivering, you know, high-resolution video content. That would not be a supported solution. But for basic internet connectivity, or occasionally an installer will hang an access point off of that, that's okay. Just be realistic about what the bandwidth constraints are. We're always going to prioritize Sonos traffic over anything else that's plugged into that port.
Oh, nice. Okay. And then also, speaking of, we were just talking about Deezer and Tidal. What is the support of the high-res file, either local on the network, or the streaming services that now offer them?
So the highest that we can do is 1644 CD quality. The two services that I know of that deliver that via a streaming method is Deezer and Tidal. There may be more. Those are the two that I know of. And they're premium subscriptions. They cost $20 a month, and basically they are all ripped in FLAC on the back end and delivered over, you know, internet connectivity via Deezer and Tidal at 1.5 megabits a second is the bit rate for that lossless track. On the local network, same thing. It's the same. That's the maximum quality that we support is 1644 via a local NAS. So if whatever lossless format that's in, whether it's, you know, FLAC or WAVE or some other lossless codec, we support probably about 20 different codecs, everything from MP3 to, you know, WAVE and FLAC. Typically, FLAC is what is most commonly used in lossless files that are stored on a local NAS, and we're going to stream that at 1644 CD quality is the sampling bit rate that we will support.
Okay, thank you. Chris asks, when you showed the 4.1 system, is it 2 actual amps or 1 amp with 4 speakers?
No, to do the surround and have discrete, you know, surround experience, it's actually 2 amps. So 1 for the left, right, front, and 1 amp for the left, right, rear surrounds. And then either, you know, using your own third-party sub or a Sonos sub, which can be paired in wirelessly.
Okay. Let me see. Chris asks, how are the amps connected? You basically pair them up in the software, right, in the app?
Yes, you pair them up in the software. So if you've ever done like a play bar, and then it goes through the app and it says, would you like to add a sub or would you like to add surrounds? So in the app itself, it's a very similar setup flow. Basically, when you configure it, actually what happens is when it detects that there's an HDMI input via ARC or perhaps using the optical adapter, it will trigger that setup flow in the app. So again, it will be very similar, if not identical, to the way Playbar sets up. So it just says, hey, would you like to add surrounds? And then you just basically say, I've got this other amp and it's going to be my rear surrounds for the primary.
Okay, thanks. And it's the same way with if you're using a Playbar or a Beam as the fronts to add like in-ceiling rears using a new Sonos amp.
Yeah, with the new Sonos amp, yes. Like the original Connect amp was a little bit more complicated because you had to, add your Playbar in, configure that, and then you would add that Connect amp, basically as a zone temporarily, and then you would have to pull up a little browser and go into a special URL to configure it to work with that play bar. So this is much vastly simpler.
Okay. All right. Oh, and also Chris is asking about the pre-order. So Chris, the pre-order is going to be out a little bit. I'll let Matt speak to that.
Yeah, so pre-order, in terms of distribution, they will have product by December 1st. There will be product in stock available for sale via AllNet by December 1st.
And we'll have the SKU created and enabled within our system a few weeks ahead of that. So stay tuned. We'll send out a communication as soon as the pre-order is available to you. Okay. So Scott has a theoretical question. I love asking these theoretical questions. Has Sonos engineering looked into powering the smaller speakers via PoE so we can mount the speaker and feed power and signal via Ethernet cable and not have to deal with electrical outlets when we try to hang Sonos ones and Play ones?
Yeah, that's he thinks like me. That's the dream, right? That we can all live in a PoE world where we don't have to have all these power cords. No, it's an intriguing idea, and I think with the advancements in PoE, and obviously if we kind of interpolate a little bit about what the future holds, it certainly would make sense that PoE will be a big part of our future. Beyond that, I can't comment on product roadmap other than to say that I think PoE is a fantastic technology, and that's a great idea.
Well, the amplifier chipsets are getting smaller and more efficient, so sure. Who knows? This is something that maybe this could happen someday. I remember when HD-Base-T first launched, they were very excited about the fact they could deliver 100 watts, and I thought to myself, I don't know that I want 100 watts going down 26 gauge conductors, but right. So all right. So yeah, we got another question about the daisy chaining. I think you addressed it, but can we daisy chain amplifiers, let's say on a rack build, using the Ethernet ports off of 1 amp?
We don't recommend it.
Okay.
The issue that can happen is I mean, it does create some congestion on the network because effectively you are kind of having your bandwidth every time you daisy chain. And we just don't like it to be a big practice, because the other thing is that oftentimes when network loops form, it's because somewhere in the install there's daisy chaining has occurred. And depending on what switch hardware you use, if it's an unmanaged switch versus a managed, sometimes it just becomes more difficult to troubleshoot. The reality is that switch hardware has become vastly cheaper in the last couple of years. So unmanaged gigabit switches are very inexpensive now. So it's a better design overall and a more efficient network to have a dedicated switch port for each Sonos player. Now, if you did daisy chain, it would work, and probably most scenarios it would be totally fine, but we don't recommend it because it's just a better overall design and a more efficient use of network resources to individually hardwire each player. I will tell you this, that there's a fundamental law of Ethernet that does get broken after 7 daisy chain devices. So you will definitely experience issues after, I think the number is 7. That's just a fundamental law of Ethernet, hardware layers. So it's just better at this point to try and hardwire as many players as you can independently.
Okay. So we had a follow-up question on the security notification.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a place, or is it going to be published with these third-party integrations, which features will be available on which devices, which legacy devices?
Yeah, and I wish I had more information for you on that. I mean, at this point, all of that is in development, so I don't have a ton of visibility there, other than our commitment to build those those security integrations. But we absolutely see security as a very significant part of the types of products that will most commonly integrate with Sonos, because it's a natural fit between comfort and security, to traverse over into audio, and so that will definitely be a very focused area of our development efforts. There should be, I will try and see if I can get some resources that AllNet can post on their site that will give some updates, or perhaps resources that indicate where our development efforts lie, and basically how they're progressing. But I would fully expect that that security notifications will be a significant part of any third-party integration, whether it's Alarm.com or others. That'll be a natural fit.
Okay, we have another question about the 4.1 setup configuration. So if it's going to be fed via ARC only needs to come into one of these amplifiers, right? And then the other ones are fed via the Wi-Fi connection or the Ethernet connection between the two?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, so Adam, you do not need any sort of a splitter.
Nope.
Okay, I think we've addressed every question. If anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to type them into the questions tab here in the control box off to the right side of the screen. Otherwise, I think we're pretty much done here. So Matt, thank you for your time today. Everyone, if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or reach out to Bill Zidek. So my email is rick.murphy@allnetdistributing.com or bill.zidek, Z-I-D-E-K, @allnetdistributing.com. And Matt, you still have your contact info up, right?
I can put it up.
Okay, I'm looking at the questions tab.
Let me get to the top here. I'll put it in my name. All right. Everybody see that?
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Matt's a great resource, and like Matt said, if you have any questions, feel free to call us at any of the AllNet offices. We're happy to help with Sonos system design and any questions that you might have. So we've been a Sonos partner for quite a while.
Yes,
and
you
many
have.
of us own it at our own homes as well. So, all right, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in the webinar. We're going to go ahead and end the webinar now, and we look forward to chatting with you again next week. All right, thanks, Matt.
All right, thanks, Rick. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.